Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Radiator Arms. Well, sort of. It is today, once again, just Will and I, for Ant is off down in the edit mines working hard. And my wife suggested to me that for the episodes where we don't have Papa Ant, we call this instead the Radiator Arms Unsupervised. So, in today's episode, Will and I are going to be talking about breakdowns. Not necessarily emotional ones, more the physical, but we might cross over a little bit. And let's start with, I think, the best and most basic question. What's the first time you can remember breaking down in a car? Not necessarily one that you were driving.
Probably when I was young. I feel like my mum's E30 that she had back in the day, something happened, it broke down. I remember we had to get the AA. I think it broke down on the drive, actually. I don't think we were in motion at the time. I just feel like I remember it being fuel pump related. I remember that she was flapping tremendously because we had to be somewhere. It was probably school or doctors or something. And I remember just being like, yeah, this doesn't really bother me. I was just really interested in seeing what like the breakdown guy was doing under the bonnet of the car. I was just like, what's that? As he's like poking around in relay boxes, and he's like, shut up, child, I'm busy.
Is that where it all started?
It probably. I've said before, my obsession with cars and working on them and electronics started with my dad's hi-fi in the early 90s, which some of the components are actually sitting down to our right there. The mini disc player and the DAT player were there, and I used to like the way they lit up, and I used to like the CD one. He had the Sony CD where you'd press it and watch the drawer come in and out and stuff like that. And everything electric, and then mechanical started happening from there. So it was around that same kind of time, the early youth.
For a long time, I think sadly much of it's gone now, I had the stack that my dad bought in the 80s, and it was something like, I think it was something like 600 quid, which back then was a lot of money. I remember Mum saying it was like one of the first things they did when they started dating is he went out to go and buy this fancy hi-fi. And I'm sure it was a JVC unit. And then when I started getting into hi-fi stuff, because he then basically moved it out to the garage and it just sort of sat there doing nothing. And it was your usual amp, tuner, and then there was a Sony CD player, which had joined it later, and a record deck, which I never used. But I love the fact the needles on the front, would flip up and down. So that was very, very cool. And that got me into hi-fi. My first breakdown, now I know for a fact that when I was very young indeed, Mum broke down at least once in, I want to say her Suzuki Swift. Might be misremembering that. I have no memory of it at all. But the first one I remember is we were, I'm pretty sure, on the motorway in Dad's then almost brand new 996, and he ran out of fuel. Because I remember so distinctly going along and then Dad just like weaving the car from side to side and me being like, Dad, what are you doing? And he said, we're running out of fuel. I'm trying to see if we can get any more, in the pickup pipe. And yeah, we wound up basically conking out on the side of the motorway. He had to then walk down to the garage and get, buy a can, fill it up and walk it back. And apparently the guy from the petrol station was flabbergasted because, when you see a bloke sort of, walk down the road, buy a can of fuel to walk home, he expected it was some clapped out Nova or something and not a brand new 2-month-old 911. I believe that was on a Saturday, and on the Monday, I think it was, Dad came home to a letter from Porsche saying, by the way, there is a defect with the fuel gauge in your car. It may overread how much fuel it actually has. Do not drive it below a quarter on the gauge. And I think he had some choice words for them over that one because he was not impressed at all. But last night, I put out a post at midnight asking if anybody had breakdown stories of their own, and you've not let us down because we have got quite a few. And I'm just gonna give you a selection of a few. Then we may revisit later. Here's one from Ollie. A few years ago, his BMW's water pump failed, letting out coolant on the way home at about 3:00 in the afternoon. He got it pulled over into a lay-by. Called the AA, explained what had happened, and said, obviously, your man in a van is not going to be able to fix this. 3 hours later, a man in a van appeared.
Ugh.
And then 9.5 hours later, a recovery truck appeared after having seen 4 recovery trucks, AA recovery trucks, drive past him while he was still broken down on the side of the road. And this is a really common theme. I've experienced this. I think you might have experienced this. I know lots of people have experienced this. There's something going on with the AA and other recovery services whereby their internal process, I think, is just broken, because there are so many times I've called up and said, look, this has happened and it is just not recoverable. I had it with the F12. It threw its belt. The belt was gone. It was in pieces on my under tray, right? And even if I had a spare belt with me, is the AA man going to fit a new belt to a Ferrari? Not really. So I told them, I even spoke to, and then they sent a van out, and the guy in the van said, I have no idea why they sent me out. I was never going to be able to fix this. It's very frustrating. I think the AA should do like a gold membership. You're like, look, pay extra, but you won't be treated like an idiot. And when you summon a recovery truck, and even say, if you've summoned a recovery truck, but it turns out we totally could have fixed it, then there's a surcharge. Fine, don't care. But if I call the AA, it's generally because my car ain't going nowhere. We have another here, and this one is dedicated to our good friend Ben the Sparkle. And it comes in from Graham, who bought himself a 2007 Ford Mondeo Titanium X because he needed a nice, comfortable, long-distance car. 2 days later, it started depositing oil on the driveway. He took it back to the dealer, but when he got it from them, it was then in limp mode. He took it to an independent garage to look at it. They said the turbo is gone. The dual mass flywheel is hanging on for dear life, and the car was effectively fit for the scrappy. He said it to the dealer, and they said, oh, we're very sorry. You're going to have to take this to our trusted independent of our own to get this diagnosis confirmed. And they sent him to Halfords. Halfords said, yeah, mate, it's knackered. And then the guy still didn't want to deal with it. And basically 2 miles away from Halfords, it actually finally packed up and the dual mass flywheel let go. So he called them to get it towed back. He subsequently bought a 2010 Honda Civic Type S with the 2.2 in it and did 110,000 miles in 5 years with not a single problem.
Excellent.
So the moral of the story, children, is buy a Honda.
Yeah, I was only laughing at the start there, not because of the man buying Ford, because of the unfortunacy of Ben the Sparkle's Ford. Sorry, Ben.
Sorry, Ben. So one here is from a car dealer who I am going to leave nameless because I think this might not be a popular story. He was on his way in a Volvo V60 to an auction house and he was about 60 miles away. The car was new to him and the fuel light came on. Having had Volvos before, he thought he had a little way still to go in the tank. It turned out that he didn't and it conked out. But as there was a car at the auction he was very desperate to get to, he pulled over to the side of the road, put the hazards on, called himself a taxi, went to the auction house, bid on the car, got a taxi back to his own car, stopped at a petrol station on the way home, got some fuel, fueled it up, and carried on.
That is so funny. You shouldn't do that. But
don't do that. Do not do that. We do not advise that at all. We do not support that sort of filthy activity here at the Radiator Arms. But it is also a bit of a laugh. This is from Toby. He lost the clutch in his Unos Roadster. Ooh. At the lights. Managed to push the car into a lay-by, got his brothers to drive out to help get it push started with the car in first gear, and drove 20 miles home without a clutch, without stopping.
Where do you reckon he lost it? Is it under the seat or somewhere in the engine bay?
Yeah, this sort of stuff does happen. Oh, hello. This is good. Rented a random Chinese SUV to drive through Bolivia and Argentina. Broke down in Uyuni. This is from Patrick. So, yeah, that's... Lewis has had his alternator go on the motorway. Yep, been there, Lewis. This is from BH1, Ben, the photographer, who did one of the Radiator Arms days and also did the photography for Euro Run. His F-Type broke down 3 hours into the European road trip. That was... that was very unfortunate. No, this is terrible. This is from Matt. Range Rover Sport broke down on the A303 on the day of the Queen's funeral. Oh, no. Had to wait 6 hours for anyone to come out. This is from Galant Evo. He bought his first car, a 1990 Starlet, on his birthday. He took his girlfriend on a drive to dinner. Halfway there, the dodgy wiring by the previous owner resulted in a full electrical fault and getting towed to his own date.
Well, at least he got to have dinner.
Yeah. I also had a chap come out recently who showed me some amazing photographs. Like, I think, we live in this age now where everything gets photographed. Like, you take photos of the most inane stuff because you've got a phone on you, right, and it's easy. But there's this lovely chap brought me out a Citroen BX16, by the way. You'd have loved it. No, please don't ask me where mine is. He had gone to Le Mans with a friend of his in the 80s, and he had photos of like the silk cut Jaguars and stuff racing and all that sort of stuff that he'd taken on film back in the day. And he'd gone down with a friend in his Lancia Beta, and they'd had a good time, had fun, and they'd watched the racing and everything. And when the racing was done, obviously then the circuit kind of opens back up because a lot of it's public road, and they thought, right, let's have one last blast down the Mulsanne Straight before we go home. They headed down the Mulsanne Straight, and then they sort of turn around, and there's this big orange glow coming from the back of the car, pull over, and the thing just burns to the ground in front of their eyes. And the guy's like, oh my God, my car. And he's like, oh my God, no, never mind the car. Our passports are in there. And he said, and my guy says, never mind the passports. The key to my company car is in there.
Oh God.
So the next day, they hired a car. Next day, they went to the scrapyard to see what was left of this Lancia. And they found this little mangled little bit of plastic that was actually the key for his company car.
Oh.
It just sort of like turned into a bit of glob of black plastic, but it was there. He's like, I've got it. It's like, I don't want to face the fleet manager and tell him we've got to get a new key for the car. I won't live it down. So he managed to save it.
Did it work though? Is it one of those keyless ones?
Mate, it's the 80s.
Oh, the 80s. Oh,
Yeah, so very much, yeah. And to be honest, it's the 80s, so worst case screwdriver.
I was going to say, or a key from any other similar brand.
Yeah, literally anything vaguely, someone's house. Just give it a whirl. Was it the Ford keys, the Tib keys, where like obviously only your key would unlock your car, but you could lock anyone's car?
Yes, I think it was something like that. I do remember actually my Peugeot 106 that I had one of them. The best way to unlock the door, the quickest way was just take a screwdriver, put it in the lock and bend the lock up because the panel was so flimsy that it was attached to, it would actually actuate the lock. So that's how somebody got into one of my Peugeot 106s once to try and steal it.
When years ago I was going through some stuff with my grandmother in her garage, she had this sort of large A3 size kind of brown envelope, and she was like, we probably shouldn't have this. And I'm like, what's in the envelope, Nan? And she pulled out a set of Slim Jims. Because my granddad was a mechanic.
So he had to get into car. People would lock themselves in the cars.
All the time. He'd be the person that they would call, and he'd have to go out. So, and of course, back in the day, if you could see, if you had one of those little locks where it popped up and down, you're like, basically, if you get a Slim Jim, slide it down the window, like, you're done. But yeah, she's like, we probably shouldn't have these. I don't know if they're actually illegal or not, but like, no, I don't think they are.
I think it's like with a lot of things, it's the intent and the situation that you've got it in.
Yeah. It's like a knife. Kitchen, fine. Like, Leicester Square, less fine.
Yeah, exactly. Door bin of your driver's side of your car, definitely not allowed.
Yeah, no. So, Will, when's the first time you personally broke down?
So the first time I personally broke down, I think it was in my... Actually, no, technically... So are we counting failures to proceed as breakdowns? Or
yeah.
Or is it just like this car is like, I'd have no idea how I've managed to get it home kind of thing?
No. To me, a breakdown has to be failure to proceed, the car has stopped, you are not getting to your destination without help.
Right. So the first time was in my Eunice Roadster, and it's only actually back in 2015 was the first time I actually broke down. I had plenty.
Oh, wow.
Actually, no, sorry, I've lied. Let's go backward. Peugeot 106s again.
Oh, yep.
I had my £100 Peugeot 106 that I had bought off a friend after he crashed it into a wall with me in it. Basically, he was doing what all 17-year-olds do, and he was driving around back roads really fast, and he caught air in the middle of the road, and then the car went boomf down on the ground as another car's coming towards him. He'd put his steering wheel on lock to try and avoid mid-air, which would have never worked. So he ended up going bouncing off the wall twice.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a good idea to buy and do up, because this is the kind of person I am. But the first breakdown with that car, being, now you've painted the picture of it being a bit shoddy, was the alternator stopped working.
Ah.
But I didn't know the alternator had stopped working because technically it hadn't. Now, there are two wires on an alternator on an old school system usually. One which is feeding the indicator light on the dashboard to let you know that your alternator has stopped charging.
Yep.
And one which is actually feeding the battery to charge it. Can you guess which one stopped working?
Is it the one that told the dashboard that it was...
No. It's the one that was charging the battery. So I was going merrily down the road with no warning lights on, and suddenly my radio started flickering. I was thinking, this is really weird. What is going on here?
So it still didn't... so basically, so the alternator actually worked. It just wasn't connected
to the battery.
I see. So and obviously, the alternator didn't know to fail, so it didn't need to illuminate a warning light, because it was working, just not doing its job.
Exactly, because there was no connections. The alternator thought, I'm pumping out
life is good.
Yeah, the dashboard was going, yep, this is as good as it gets. So I was like, the radio kind of just wasn't working properly. And then all of a sudden, like, the rev count was just dropping back and then coming up, and lights were flickering and flashing, and the car started misfiring. I was like, what on earth is going on here? And the battery was dead. The car wouldn't even crank and start. But it was really weird because it was like... when you like really work a battery hard, like an old school battery, and suddenly a few minutes later it gets a little bit more lease of life. So I was stuck just outside of Colchester, and I was on a main road in a 60 Dragon. This car was not moving anywhere at all. And then all of a sudden I 5 minutes later I tried to crank it again, and it suddenly fired up and drove off. I was like, this is weird. I drove it, got another couple of minutes down the road, and then it cut out for good and wouldn't restart. Basically, it just drained the battery and not told me. So that was my first breakdown in the car. And and rather annoyingly, and the place I worked at the time, I called them up to say, hey, I am broken down and I'm currently waiting for recovery. And their response was, can you get someone to pick you up and take you to work? I'm like, really? I have to stay with the car here. I am broken down. And I was a learner at this point as well. So I had somebody else with me as well. I had good old Bernie, the old chap that works with us down here as well. And he was going, this bloody car, William. I don't know why you work on this piece of crap, William. Just like that, in a very old Suffolk kind of boy accent.
Did he use it as an excuse to have a go at the French?
He did.
Yeah, you surprised me. Yeah.
He did. Even though when I got back, it was just a wire had come loose off. It was a really easy fix. In fact, actually, what I did to get the car back was we left it there. I had somebody else pick me up then, because the recovery through the AA was going to be 12 hours.
Yeah.
12 hours. And this was like 13, 14, 15 years ago, however long it was. And things usually weren't that bad back then, but apparently they were. But yeah, I charged the battery up, and then we got it back on the full battery, and I fixed the wire, and that was it. And
I had the opposite problem with my ill-fated MG ZT-T, the Rover 75 based estate. And the alternator light was permanently illuminated, because there was a fault in the alternator. It was charging fine, doing its job, but misreporting the fact.
Right.
However, when I picked the car up, I forgot we'd had the conversation with the guy who was doing the work, because he had asked me about it. Because what he said was, look, the alternator is actually working, it's just reporting that it's not. And the only thing we can really do is replace it, and it's like a 400 or 500 quid job. And I was already far too deep into this car, and I was like, well, if it's actually working, I'm not worried. And when I got in the car, I forgot about it, and I phoned him. I said, the alternator light's on. He said, yeah, no, we discussed it. I was like, oh, okay. And I was like, well, how do I know when the alternator does actually fail? And he went, well, that's easy. So, because if you look, you'll notice that the alternator light is on, but it's slightly dim. I was like, what? He's like, turn the car off. When you turn it on, you get you get all the check lights to tell you the bulbs are working, which someone also previously taken out of that car. They're at full brightness, and then when you start the car, it gets slightly dimmer. He's like, if ever you're unsure, put the handbrake on. That's full brightness for the light. It's like, oh my goodness. I've had so much bad luck with alternators. Like, they're so problematic. Yeah, the Celica broke down alternator. The 550 broke down alternator. That we did manage to limp home. And then the replacement alternator failed. Like, well, actually, it didn't fail. It was already failed. And then, the F12 threw its alternator belt.
Yes. And then the Grey Mini decided to break its alternator on track.
It did, yeah. Yeah, no luck at all with alternators.
No.
None. So my first breakdown happened 2 miles after I got my driving license. I had 2 miles of trouble-free, uninterrupted, joyous motoring. Actually, I tell a lie, it wasn't even my driving license. It was my CBT. So, for those who don't know, CBT, compulsory basic training, it's effectively, or at the time, it was a day course on a motorbike, in my case, a moped, and you do a little bit in a car park, like literally, ride forwards, stop, ride forward, stop, go around these cones, make sure you're safe in basic terms, and then they take you out for a day. There's no formal test or anything. Effectively, someone signs you off to say, yeah, we think you're probably going to be all right. Now, I did the test about, I think, 15, 20 miles away from home. And I'd already talked to Dad. We worked out a route to get back and everything on the back roads, because we could have taken the main road, but on a moped, that's dangerous because it's 70-mile-an-hour road and I'm limited to 30. So we discussed the route and everything, made plans, all that stuff. I'd had a really good day. I'd passed the CBT. Guy gave me, a few little notes about things I could improve on, but by and large was going really, really well. There's a really big hill. It's like a mile-long hill outside where this test center is. I rode down and I come to a roundabout. And it's quite a big roundabout because it also will join up with the dual carriageway should you want it to. So I was going down and I'm getting to the roundabout and I'm like, the bike's feeling a little bit weird. Like the rear of it's feeling a bit wrong. It feels like the back of the bike is on ice. And I'm like, and I'm moving. I'm like, nah, this is not right. Like, this is not right at all. Pull over. I got a flat.
Oh.
Yep. And I was like, somehow, somewhere, probably while I was doing the test, I'd picked up a nail or something. And yeah, so I phoned up the test center because they were a mile away and I was like, help, I've broken down. They're like, what do you want us to do about it? I was like, well, I know you've got a trailer. I was really hoping if you didn't mind, because the test center was inside a motorbike workshop that my dad used. So basically he'd left the bike there for me to use.
Yeah.
And then the idea was I was going to ride home on it. So I said, look, could you maybe please, I know you're a mile away. Could you just come and get me so I can drop the bike somewhere and I'll get my dad to come and pick me up? And then Dad came and picked me up in his car. And yeah, that was so frustrating because it's, you're like, freedom, and then ripped away instantly. But I also learned that day about how brilliant bikers are, because I was stuck on the road, I think, for about 2 or 3 minutes, and a biker went around the roundabout, saw me, came back the roundabout to stop and see if he could offer any help or anything like that. So, I was like, do you know what? Bikers, they get a bad rap sometimes, but by and large, they're really solid people that will help out a fellow biker that is in need.
I think a lot with motorbike riders is they know they're probably one of the most vulnerable groups on the road, next to bicycles themselves.
Yep.
So if somebody's in trouble, you haven't got that protection of like a big cage. If you're broken down, which your car, you're going to get splattered if something happens. So yeah, I think that's part of the mentality, is because I think anybody that rides a bike would probably like to know that if they break down and have an issue, someone is going to come and save them, or at least check they're okay. So it's nice to pay it forward.
Yeah. Well, the other thing, of course, with a bicycle, if you break down, there's a good chance you maybe weren't going that far and you can walk it. It's going to take you longer, but you can do it. On a motorbike, well, you don't really want to push a motorbike very far.
No.
And you may have been going quite some distance.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's and the thing I think with breakdowns, like having now been in the unfortunate position where I have been stuck on the side of the road a few times, what frustrates me greatly is the fact that it's this real uncertainty I think when you break down, no matter which service you're with, and unfortunately, the only reason I'm still with the AA is because by all accounts, they are the best. And that is a damning indictment of our motorway recovery services, that they are considered the best out there, because they're very poor with communication. There's this constant thing of them having to send a man in a van out before they'll call you a recovery truck, even when you've made it abundantly clear that, I've had people where you're like, a wheel has fallen off, like bits have fallen off the car, like it's sheared in half. You're like, you could have a car on fire and they'll say, oh, we'll send a man out to see if there's anything we can do about it. And I think if they were just honest about when something's going to happen, when they're going to be with you, you could make it work. But I remember years ago, I broke down in my Subaru. I was only about 7 miles from home, maybe. And I was pulling out at a junction, put the car into first, pull out of the junction, and then went to move into second. And the lever was just not moving. Like it was going nowhere. So I pulled over, couldn't sort of get it out. It didn't feel right. Didn't feel like it wanted to move. Some of the AA, they came out, had a look, and they did try a couple of things, but they're like, no, really sorry, like there's nothing we can do. And I was basically stuck in a little village with very little in the way of signal. And they said it could be 5 or 6 hours till we get someone to you. And there's no guarantee it's going to be that quick. So in that case, because it was just little country roads to get home, I basically just went, do you know what? Sod this, I'm just going to drive it home in first, screaming its head off, like 30 mile an hour the whole way back, and managed to get there, because I was like, I don't, it wasn't going to be long until it was dark, and then you're like, right, then I'm dark, my car is parked in not an optimal place, because when you can only go forwards, you got to be careful about where you put the car, and it was just an absolute mission. Very, very frustrating. I had it with when the 720 broke down that I was trying to bring home. They got out reasonably quickly. Actually, the first truck got out to me reasonably quickly, and they actually, on that occasion, they did send out a recovery truck. And I think they only did that because it was a McLaren, because they knew that the man in the van would not have been able to do anything anyway. For those who didn't see the video, what happened in that case was a bolt fell out of the suspension. So it came loose, which is entertaining when that happens on the road. And I got relayed. So I got relayed. The first truck that came to pick me up was a proper big, the whole back of it comes down, so you just drive onto it type thing. That was all cool and good, and the guy was great. The second guy was a bit sketchy. It was basically a Transit with a tiny bed on the back. And he was very proud of the fact of telling me he was like 19 years old. And I'm trying to get this car on the back of it and trying to get a McLaren on the back of a truck that's at quite a steep angle. Like it's not fun. It's not easy. And this car only just fit. It was very nerve-wracking. But then when we're getting to the next stop, they told me, like, basically as they were dropping me off, oh, by the way, yeah, because the bank holiday, we got a bit of a backlog. And I'm like, well, the bank holiday was a week ago. Like, and they're like, yeah, basically someone might not be with you for another, 9 hours. And this is at 1 a.m. I'm like, what? Like, really? And I got dropped off at this, awful services, which I think it didn't even have a petrol station, right? I mean, what sort of services is that? But it had a Burger King or something else. They were both closed and had been closed for some time. And there was a travel lodge. And I went into the and also my phone was on 3% battery. And I went into the travel lodge. And I was like, please tell me you have a room. And they were like, yeah, we got one. It's like, thank you. Otherwise, I'm going to be sleeping in a car in the car park, which is just not how I want to spend my night. That was not fun at all. Where's the furthest from home you've broken down?
So the furthest I broke down from home is not actually while I was driving. It was in my dad's Volvo back in the day when we were going to the Gibson HQ in London, and his dashboard stopped working.
Oh, yeah. And
the car kept cutting out. And we were just pulling up into the kind of the head office area of the Gibson place. And suddenly it just wasn't working, and it kept blowing fuses. So in the end, the AA guy did come out and he managed to kind of figure out something was kind of going. I'm not really sure what happened. This was like 2007, 2008, maybe something like that. And he replaced a fuse so we could get the engine running. And then my dad just drove it home with basically no instrument cluster, nothing, just kind of guessing the speed, guessing the revs. That's probably the furthest I've actually broken down. I'll tell you what the thing is with me with my cars. A lot of the time, I not necessarily over-maintain them, but I really don't like the idea of breaking down. I'm very much into preventative maintenance, i.e. changing your belts, changing your oil regularly. I always look for fluid leaks. Before I do any long trip, I check over my car for any hoses that look a bit weird or anything that might be a bit untoward, and just check. And I think 9 times out of 10, that's probably why I only have very, very few breakdown stories, is because I think there was, I can't remember exactly where I was reading it, but I think it was like at least half of all breakdowns, something like that, are preventable by basic maintenance. A lot of them are really silly reasons for breaking down. It's just because the car hasn't been looked after. Obviously, there are times where a car is well looked after and stuff just goes wrong. But I can tell you the most expensive breakdown I've ever had, if you like.
Oh, yeah, go for that.
So, imagine this. You have a 2008 Vauxhall Corsa. You and my wife, and you were trading it in for a Fiat 500. You'd gone down to the garage, which is at Quest Motors in Braintree, around kind of 45 minutes away from my home area. And the day we have to go drop the car off to get the new one, the Corsa decides to throw a check engine light. I'm like, this is very weird. And this is in the morning of, and we were driving, and I think we'd driven us somewhere else on some other bits. By the time we got back home to get ready to go, the car was misfiring and running lumpy and things like that. And long story short, and we had no idea this was happening. In between the 3 or 4 days of us going to the garage, getting the car valid, and getting them to say, yeah, this is fine, the timing chain stretched and went out of tension.
Oh.
So basically, because my wife had already agreed to the finance and things like that for the car, I had to put £1,000 on my credit card. So that was my most expensive breakdown. So we could actually buy the new Fiat 500 that she was getting. This was 2017, I think it was. And that was such a shame because that Corsa had been pretty good to her up until that point. And it's just typical. It's like, you don't want to be sold. And we sold that car for about 100 quid in the end.
They know they're being sold, don't they? They start acting up.
Well, in some regards, I have to think I'm glad that the garage didn't get a lemon, because at the end of the day, these businesses and stuff like that, whether they retailed that car or not, they probably could have, because it was actually in pretty decent shape at the time. 2017 retailing a 2008 car for an all right kind of price is feasible still. So at least they didn't get it and then think these people have had us over, these arseholes. How they knew this was happening, because had that like happened like a day later, that's exactly what they would have thought, and we would have had no idea. And I actually don't know what the comeback with that. If once the garage has the car, can they come back to somebody and say anything?
Nope.
Yeah, but from a moral perspective, yes, it cost us money, but we didn't screw over a dealer. And I think it was Chop's Garage or something recently, I don't know if you heard them on YouTube before, were saying that a lot of the times when people trade in cars, it's because something's either wrong with it or imminently going wrong, basically. So dealers a lot of the time have to bear the brunt of other people's negligence on cars and actually end up spending a lot of money and can lose a lot of money sometimes.
Yeah, you see, I would have sympathy for them if I liked them, but I don't. And I'm sure there are nice car dealers out there somewhere, maybe. But so I'll give you an example. I was selling, I had a BMW Z4M Coupe. And I was selling that. I had it listed online, and I got contacted by a dealer who wanted to offer me some money for it, less obviously than I was advertising it for. And I said, no, this is the price. I've already had people offering me that much money. I've said no. So they gave me a slightly better offer. I said, yeah, okay, for that I'll entertain it. But like, if you want to come out and do the We Buy Any Car, beat me up more, like you're going home. This guy comes out, he looks at the car, walks around it for like a minute, goes, oh yeah, you got tinted rear window. Have I? It was barely tinted. And also the rear 3/4 on a Z4M is like microscopic. It's tiny, right? And this car had like an all BMW service history. It's really well looked after, very low mileage and everything else. He's walked around it, said, yeah, fine. Literally handed me a check and walked away. He didn't even start it. Didn't look under the bonnet, like Nothing. And then a week later, basically a recovery truck turns up to take it away. So they don't do any prep. They don't do any checking. And yeah, I would have some sympathy for dealers if when they got a bad car in, they went, oh dear, the timing chain on this one's stretched. We better fix it before we retail it, as opposed to selling it to a customer, hoping that it takes long enough for them to notice that something's wrong with it, that they can go, oh, that'll be a warranty problem. The number of times I've had a car from a dealer where you've had it 2 days and something goes wrong and they go, warranty. That's not the warranty company's problem. That's not their fault to deal with. That's pre-existing, sunshine. It's there. I know it was there. And I've had cars before where foolishly, just various reasons, I haven't twigged. And this is one of the reasons, by the way, that I'm so particular with getting the history of a car. Because if you buy a car and you get a problem, say 2-3 months later, and the dealer goes, no, warranty problem. That wasn't there. Well, if you go through the history and you go, well, actually, for the last 2 years before you guys bought that car, owners were trying to fix this problem and they couldn't, then you can go, well, look, there's the evidence. It was pre-existing. And this is, I think, half the reason dealers like binning service history, because it covers up any pre-existing faults. A stamp in a book doesn't mean anything. All it means is that car saw that dealer on that day and they did, presumably, what was on the service schedule. They could have told the owner, by the way, your car's basically condemned. It's, fit for the scrappy. But, sod it, I don't care. Service it. It'll limp on. So that frustrates me.
Yeah, I think, unfortunately, there are people like that. But I don't know, maybe it's because I'm an optimist. I like to believe that there are good car dealers out there. The High Peak Autos of the world. I'm sure you've seen Matt from High Peak Autos. His stuff, the way he talks about it. And I think he does a dealer training course and things like that, videos and stuff like that. And,
I hope there's a cattle prod involved.
But I don't know. I like to think if you're lucky enough to get somebody like him who respects his business and, is one of those you can.
Customer service is a dying art. I'll never forget when I was a student living in London. We, of course, were all masters of every single local takeaway, because also this was the glory days of 2008, 2009. We'd just gone through the financial crisis and everything, but unlike the most recent one, the cost of stuff went down. So it was genuinely, in some cases, cheaper just to order food in, right? Because you could get 2 pizzas delivered that would feed 3 of you for basically 12 quid, right? We used to make sport out of trying to find the cheapest deals that we could get. And anyway, I was always ordering Chinese from all the local places, and we would race them. You'd order Chinese from 2 different places and see which one turned up first. One of them, I know word of a lie, you'd put the phone down and you might as well start walking to the front to go and pick it up, because they had it to you in 15 minutes. And I don't understand how you could do that. That place was called My Old China.
What a name.
But there was another one, and I can't remember what this one was called. You phone them up once, you ring them up and they went, what? It's like, I'd like some food, please. Yeah, what you want? And it's like, all right, this is, yeah, be there in 10 minutes, mate. Okay, done.
It's like,
I never forget. It's like, what? You're like, sorry?
It's like, come on, I've got things to do. Get it out.
Yeah.
What? Chicken chow mein, pork balls. Okay, done. 10 minutes.
Yeah. If you stop talking, I'm putting the phone down. That's it. I'm not listening to you anyway. You're wasting my time, sunshine.
It's like he's selling stocks and shares. Stock market, sell, buy. Chinese 10 minutes. There we go.
Yeah, done.
Oh, that is hilarious.
All right, so we got some more stories here. So we got a couple about MR2s. MR2s apparently not beloved of Good Luck. One from Waymo, the podcast guys, had an oil leak in their 87 MR2s. I've got a picture of it here. It's a nice original sort of silvery blue one, a bit like our mutual friend has got, that I reviewed. So had a bit of an oil leak. So before leaving for work, topped up the oil. Forgot to put the cap on. Ooh. Yeah. Almost home, noticed some smoke out of the rear. Decided last second that he wouldn't go to McDonald's. He'll instead go straight to the home, which was only 30 seconds away. Popped the engine cover, and eyebrows were then instantly removed by the fireball. Ran to the front door, grabbed a bucket from the garden, and then managed to extinguish the fire. Today's episode is sponsored by Fire Safety Stick. And yeah, there's someone else said their MR2 caught fire. And in fact, we did have a very minor incident on track last month with a similar thing where somebody hadn't quite put their oil cap on properly and then just got a little bit of just the oil just caught fire.
Was that the MR2 as well?
That was an MR2 as well. Yeah.
So speaking about the breakdown you had after you got your bike license, I can tell you about a pre-existing fault on a car my dad bought. Now, in 2011, he won his BMW 535i, which was his E39, on eBay for the princely sum of about £900.
Glory days.
And I know, and that was in Poole in Dorset. So we had to drive all the way down there. And when we got there, we were going to do the test drive and stuff. The car, the people we bought it from, it was a house, but I don't think they lived there. I was just like, you got that vibe that something was a bit weird going on. They had basically no fuel in there whatsoever, and I think that was kind of one of the things they didn't want you to test drive it too far, because as it turned out, the catalytic converters were blocked. Because what the frustrating thing about my dad, I said, you've got to get on it. You've got to just get it through the rev range and check that it revs okay. No, it's got no fuel in it. I don't want to run out of fuel. He literally drove it 5 minutes round the road and said, yeah, okay, that's fine. We'll go now. And the second he went to join the motorway after filling up, he put his foot down. Instantly, the car is shuddering and it is in limp home mode and it's barely driving at all. And it would go away when you restarted it. So we're just sitting there thinking, oh no. And also the worst thing was, as well, as it had the DSP sound system, and 4 out of the 5, I think, speakers in the front, whatever, were blown. Oh. So to get any noise to listen to our White Snake Slip of the Tongue album on the way home in the CD changer, I had to move it all the way to the back of the sound and to the left. So we had one speaker of noise on the way back in this car that is shaking and breaking down and doing these awful things. So yeah, it turns out the catalytic converters were clogged. So and the guy knew about it. And when we messaged to say anything, of course we never got a response.
The number of times I've bought a car, and especially back in the day when test driving it was either impractical or impossible, because insurance, or especially when you're young, right? And also when we were younger, the whole test drive insurance type thing online didn't exist, so you couldn't do it. And the number of times I bought a car and you get it up to 70, it's just juddering, and you're like, don't tell me you didn't know about this. Like, don't tell me you didn't know. Like, come on now. And I had a run of cars where, like, every time you get up to 70, it's juddering, and you're like, really, really, really? How did this not annoy you so much you didn't just fix it? Because sometimes it's a really simple. Sometimes it's just wheel weight. Sometimes it's really easy. Sometimes it's much more serious. I did break down on a test drive once.
Okay.
I told you about this one recently, but I've not shared it publicly. So my other half at the time, her car had been written off. We wanted to get something for her. We had a budget of like about $2,000, give or take, and we weren't sure what we wanted to get. It was just the two of us, and no kids or anything like that. And we were thinking about what to get. And I thought, well, what about the idea of a convertible? Because I had my 3 Series, so nice big sort of semi-sensible coupe, big boot, and get people in the back of it. I said, what about for you, like something a bit more fun, drop top? I didn't look at MX-5s for whatever reason, but did look at a Z3 because she liked my BMW. So I was like, okay, well, let's look at a Z3. And they just didn't work out. None of the ones we looked at were right. And I thought, what about an MGF? I know they've got a bit of a reputation, but like they're also a lot of car for the money. So we went to go and look at one in the town where we lived, which was very convenient. It's like 5 minutes from the house. So looked at this car. Yeah, I mean, look, it's 1,500 quid or something, so it's not going to be immaculate, but it seemed all right. It seemed actually a lot nicer than the Z3s did for that money, that's for sure. And got in this thing, drove it about half a mile down the road, nearly rear-ended somebody because the brakes were, I think, the worst in any car I've ever driven. They were shockingly bad. So that was a bit sketchy. I then basically thought, this car's rubbish. Like, let's just get home. And basically, I was just doing a big square, right, to get back. So about another mile down the road, I hear this. What the hell is that? I look in the rearview mirror. It's steam everywhere. So, for crying out loud. I pull over and there's steam all over the place. So I'm like, for crying out loud. Right, phone the guys up and said, guys, your car's basically overheated. Like, I don't know how it's overheated this quickly, but it has. I've only driven it like 3 miles. And they said, oh, yeah, don't worry about it. Just drive it back. Okay, fine. You want me to do that? Like, all right, you've told me to do it. So if it seizes on the way, there's nothing to do with me. So I drove it back, pulled in, they got it, pulled the dipstick. Yeah, it's like mayonnaise on the end of it. They're like, oh, it looks like it's done the head gasket. Oh, you think? Like, did you not think of checking? Like, the one thing these are infamous for is head gasket. Like, that head gasket was gone before I got in the damn car.
So
right?
what year was that?
What, when I was driving it, or the year of the car?
You know, the year you're driving. What? Because I know the garage you're talking about well.
2011, 12, something like that.
Okay, so it was very similar time to when my dad was test driving a vehicle from the same garage, which was an Audi A6. I think it was a 2.7 diesel. Were they a 2.7 diesel?
They did do a 2.7,
and
yeah.
I remember that he went out to drive it, and it was all good until that car also overheated. On probably the same circuit that you did.
Yeah,
I imagine.
I went out. Yeah, basically. So it nearly crashed before KFC, and it overheated by Tesco.
Oh no!
And as you know where I'm talking about,
yes,
like, that's
I do.
not far.
No,
and none of it's national speed limit.
No,
like, none of it
not.
at all. So yeah, it's quite impressive. Like, overheated at 40 mile an hour.
That was maybe 3 to 4 miles round trip. If that.
Tops.
If
three.
If that.
I think 3,
yeah.
absolutely, and that's like the scenic route. So yeah, that was pretty. I do remember once going to a dealer, and I drove about 3 hours to get to them. I'd phoned them in advance multiple times to go and look at. It was an Audi A6 all-road, which I've always had quite a thing for. Right, I don't know why, but I do. And I turned up. It had 2 flat tires, and basically the dashboard like a Christmas tree. It was unbelievable. And I was like, you. What, like, surely, you, like, if you know I'm coming, like, pump the air up, you know, so at least it doesn't look like it's got, you know, punctures in the tires or whatnot, you know, chuck a code cleaner on it, so, you know, get it all, like, nice and everything. So, like, no effort, none at all. Like, what the hell is wrong with that? And you're like, really, come on, guys. Like, I don't care if you're a shady car dealer. At least put some effort into, like, selling me your shady car.
At least glue the bumpers back on and wind the clock backs with the drill, you know.
Yeah, basic stuff. Like, get some sawdust in there,
Exactly.
you know, calm that gearbox down. Like,
yeah.
just like, you know, this is a dying art. This sort of basic customer service type stuff. It's like, oh, for crying out loud.
Speaking of gearboxes, can I tell you the most fun and amusing fault code I ever had was from my E39.
Oh, yeah.
In my 530i, I'd had the gearbox oil changed on it, and after that, it just kind of made a weird whining sound. And it's weird because it kept working, but occasionally it would thunk in and out of gear every so often, like once on a blue moon. And whenever I'd read the codes, it would just say, transmission has glue in it. I don't know if that was like the translation was like from German to English, but like transmission has glue in it or something like that. They mentioned glue being in the gearbox, and I'm like, I never got to the bottom of what that actually meant. I still don't understand to these days, you know, what went on. But I think it was like maybe it was flow or sticky or the fluid was too thick or something. Who knows? But that was my most interesting gearbox related code. What would you say is the most damning code you've ever had when you've done a scan on a car?
The worrying one is when you get no faults found.
Yes, actually that is when it's running really bad, you got no fault found. I can tell you that the most amusing MOT advisory I've had, and I've mentioned this before, but it was some time ago, and this was on that Peugeot 106 I bought that was crashed. The MOT garage had put car is crabbing in brackets, looked like it's been in an accident. And I'm like, yes, it has been in an accident.
I followed a pickup truck a few months back down the road, and it was like, that's not right. Like, the rear half of it was trying to overtake the front constantly, and it was quite a new truck. It was like a 3 or 4 year old truck, and it's like, that's had a very hard life. Like, the stuff I see out on the road, some of it, I mean, in fairness, like, here it's not so bad. You go particularly like to the States or anywhere where there's not an MOT equivalent, and it's just like
Florida.
It's next level insanity. It's just unreal. Yeah, Florida, I saw a car basically held together with duct tape.
Yeah. And they have, cause especially like the body on frames, like all the actual chassis and the cabs will have like no rockers or no sills, as we call them around here. They'll just be completely gone, and you'll just be like, yep, that's still going around.
Oh yeah, some friends of mine had a Chevy Blazer they called Trusty Rusty. Because also, you know, sometimes you can get what looks like very, very bad rust, but it's not actually structural in anyway. Like, it just looks terrible. But the car will keep passing MOTs because all the important bits are actually still solid.
Oh, I've got a great one for this. My Volkswagen Transporter, when you get into the van, there are some plastic kick plates underneath it on the step where you get in. And one day I put my foot in that and I was like, I feel like there's a lot of movement under this. And I pulled it up and there was a big hole in that area completely that had been hidden and nobody had ever seen. And so that was great that that thing had a big rust hole in it, it just developed over time, but I just don't think it had been picked up on the MOT. We got it done in the end. It was quite amusing. That van actually ended up having a lot of corrosion over its life, to the point when the person who bought it from me got it, they found out that somebody at some point when they'd done some welding put some expanding foam in it and then covered it over. I can't say which garage because that van went to many, many, many different garages over its life.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm
Like
not
a
surprised.
bad penny.
Exactly. But speaking of breakdowns I've had, we had that van in the family for 20 years. And do you know what? That only ever broke down 3 times, which I think is pretty good. And 2 of those were like a week apart from each other for gear linkages stuff. One was there's a metal plate which twists and goes round near the actual gearbox side of things. That broke down, had to get the AA recover it back to my unit. And then the next week after that, the bushings on the other side of that linkage decided to fall out. And that left me in the same situation. But other than that, we had a throttle cable get stuck once, but that was over like 100,000 miles nearly in that van. And that was the most reliable vehicle we had. So we can forgive it for its few breakdowns it had over the years.
Oh, okay. We got a good one here.
Okay.
From Carman Nick. He said, here's my breakdown story, though. I've had many. A few years ago, I went on a tour around Scotland in my Renault Aventime.
Oh, excellent.
With my then girlfriend. All was going swimmingly. We went to Edinburgh, through the Cairngorms, around Loch Ness, over to Isle of Skye, which is the furthest point from home. During a heavy downpour, after visiting the Man of Store, I had a hitchhiker. I gave him a lift into Portree, and then we went straight to the Co-op to buy some shopping. Portree is basically the big town on Skye.
Yes, I've been there.
When I came out, the car wouldn't start. There were lights and warnings everywhere. The local breakdown company came in, plugged the car into their diagnostic, and it showed many, many faults. Despite being only halfway through the holiday, he decided it was time to have the car recovered home and that we would go with it. The next day, we endured 4 recovery trucks, taking 19 hours, waiting in various car parks and recovery yards before getting home at 6 a.m. the next day on my girlfriend's birthday.
Oh, no.
That is just that's horrendous.
What's the newest car you've ever broken down? Is it the McLaren, do you think? Like at the time, yeah.
Yeah,
well,
got to be.
I forgot all about this. So
Dad's Porsche.
Oh yeah, I suppose that. You remember that I had a grey Dacia Sandero. Mm-hmm. Now, one of the reasons we ended up getting rid of that car and basically is because the steering lock kept going and the electronics in the steering lock area would go. So a lot of the time, the steering lock would be
would it just come on?
No. Well, we'll get to that. Uh-huh. It would be off. You take the key out and it wouldn't go off. But one time, it did come on while driving, and I had to shake the key to get it to come off.
Oh, that's a bit sketchy, isn't it? Yeah, that's scary.
But worse than that, I remember driving home at night, and this is something to do with the electronics as well. The whole car just shut off and died, and the lights turned off as well at night while I'm doing about 50, 60 miles an hour, approaching a corner. Engine dead, everything. I could see nothing. I had to jiggle that key again to get it back on. And that car was not even a year old. I think that car had either 3 or 4 steering locks in the end, and it had, multiple courtesy cars. So that's one of the reasons we ended up moving our cars to Rawlinson's and Bury St Edmunds, which we still buy vehicles from to this day, is because they, I think, put the 4th steering lock on it and got it right. The previous dealer, we bought the car from brand new, when we basically wanted to reject the car and they were having none of it, even though the Ombudsman said we're all in our rights to do that, I said, well, we'll probably see you in court in this case. And the service manager laughed and, sure you will. And I was like, you absolute... So yeah, we spent a long time on the phone to Dacia and stuff like that, and we got to the Rawlinsons and they fixed it. We never had a problem again, and we ended up trading it in for my mother's next Sandero, And and that, as far as I'm aware, that old grey Sandero is nearly on 100,000 miles now. So somebody's still driving it, and we sold that in 2021 with 12,000 miles on the clock. So
Good
that
news.
That exactly it was. So that was one of the worst things, and you'd think it would have put us off Datchas, but no,
Somehow,
I think
you keep coming back.
No, well, no, what it did was it put us off the dealer that couldn't repair it. Because sometimes with breakdowns and stuff, it's actually more about the people that are repairing it.
Honestly, it amazes me. Like, I don't understand how more companies haven't, realized this, but a good dealer is more important than a good car.
100%.
I think for the vast majority of people, unless you're talking about really exotic stuff, your Ferraris, Lamborghinis, McLarens, where you're like, look, it's all, there's going to be a bit of a issue sometimes with it, and even then you've got limited patience. But your ordinary day-to-day got to get me to work and back stuff, you're like, no, this has to work, it has to do its job, and more importantly, when it doesn't, I have to be looked after. Like, it's so important. Here's a good one. This is from Oliver. And he says, my dad once broke down at my grandmother's house. It took them 24 hours to send a van out because they thought he was safe. Boy, oh boy, they did not know my grandma. That's a corker. This is a spicy one from Connor. Hit a boulder in the middle of the road in his Micra doing about 60, lifted it onto two wheels, and then it slammed back down, buckled the front rim completely. The rear was dented. And luckily managed to swap the wheels around so that they could continue the journey. But that was... I hit a rock while I was testing a very powerful Mitsubishi Evo 10 in North Carolina. And basically, I thought it was like a little bit of mud or something in the road, and it wasn't. It was actually turned out to be a rock. And I just misjudged it ever so slightly because actually the car was lower than standard. The rock was bigger than I thought. Because of where we were, I didn't want to just go round it at the last minute or do anything daft. And anyway, there was a big smack and the car lost all its gears. And I was like, oh no, I feel really bad about this. And basically what it turned out had happened was effectively it just hit the car. It hadn't really done any damage. It had like scratched the underside a little bit, but it had basically knocked the shift lever out of position. So basically it'd come loose. So the gearbox was fine, car was fine, just the shift lever needed basically just hooking back in. The worrying bit was that 2 minutes earlier, we'd seen a bear.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, a baby bear.
Oh no!
Yes,
there's a mother bear's about somewhere.
Yes,
and they're very feisty.
Yes, when the baby's around, they've got no chill at all. Now, have you ever watched the video of Laurie collecting his fire engine?
I may have.
So allow me to tell you this story because this is fantastic, right? So and we're going to get Laurie on this podcast. Like, we're going to do this, okay? Because he messaged back and he said, my post out saying, can anyone got a breakdown story? And he said, do I have to? So this one's for you, Laurie. So this is in the really early days of our relationship. This is not first year of the channel. This is like first months of the channel. And I'd met Laurie and I knew that he owned an fire engine, which is already an unusual thing, right? And he then says, I've bought another fire engine. Okay. On eBay, right, for 600 quid. Okay. Right. And I was like, hey, shall we do a collection video? This will be a bit of a caper. Early days of the channel. This seemed like a fun idea. Laurie was already doing stuff with me at that point. Yeah, let's go for it. So where is it, Laurie? Red Ruth, which for reference is basically deepest, darkest Cornwall.
Okay.
We're in East Anglia. The fire engine is I think if you're to drive there, I think it's a 300 plus mile journey.
So it's like a long 6 hour drive, something like that.
Long way, yeah, in a car.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay. So we make a plan. We know for a fact that the thing doesn't have any batteries in it. Fire engines run a 24-volt system, which they do with a pair of 12 volts. And I can never remember. Is it in series or series? Yeah, in series, yeah. So basically, we took a suitcase, put two big 12-volt batteries into it, I think we got the train down to London, then we had to change. So I'm on the tube with this blooming suitcase with 2 batteries in it, which I then notice is getting a little bit wet.
Oh no.
Yeah. At one point, I think he might have dropped the bag on my foot. I remember the pain. I can't remember the exact order of events, but 2 batteries got dropped on my foot. That hurt. We then managed to get to the station, which had the train that was then going to Cornwall. It was a sleeper train. But he'd only booked us seats. And I was like, this is a 6-hour journey or something. It's a long, long journey. And it's through the night. And in the morning, we're going to have to come home. Now, I couldn't drive this thing at all, but I was just moral support. But I'm like, I will not sleep in a seat on a train. It can't be done.
No.
So I didn't have much money at the time, but I was like, I spoke to the conductor. I was like, have you got a room? Because they got little cabins, you know. And he said, yeah, actually, we've got one left. So how much is it? It's like 70 quid. Yeah, please, just take my money. I need to sleep. Like for both of us. And Laurie's going to have a very long day ahead of him. Okay, so we do that. We get down to Redruth, get off, and there's that awkward 10 minutes where we're waiting for this guy to turn up, being like, is he going to turn up? And eventually he does. We get there, go to his house. If you want to see all of this, watch the video because it's a corker, right? And I'm giving you a brief summary here. Get to his house. He collects lawnmowers. He's got like, I'm not joking, there's like 300 lawnmowers in his garden, right?
He must have very good quality grass.
Yeah, he had several fire engines of different types, and this one hasn't even run for years. So we're trying to start it, but it won't start. The only way to start it is by basically taking a spanner and manually getting the starter motor to fire into life by effectively shorting it, I guess. So he's under this thing, sparks flying everywhere, right? And this thing's trying to fire into life. And every time it's trying to start, it's shuddering and more rust is falling down off of it, right? I was sat there watching this being like, we've got to get in this, do we? And then eventually it does come to life, pull it out of the yard, wait an unusually long time for it to build the pressure in its brakes, because as we discussed in a previous episode, the way lorries and things work is not how it works in Hollywood. You need pressure for the brakes to go off, not on. So I managed to build pressure. Then we get to a petrol station around the corner. He puts in an ungodly amount of fuel. On the number plate of the thing, by the way, ends DNF. So I'm like, this is an omen, Lawrence. This is an omen. And when we get in it, we start driving it. This thing is like topping out at 50, 55. Because it's an old automatic gearbox. It's meant to be driven around town, right? It's
probably has a limiter as well, I imagine.
Yeah, well, I think its limiter.
The limiter was the gearbox.
The limiter was physics, right? So the good news is that like everybody seemed to love us. We got no hassle from anyone because we were a fire engine. We got to and we're trying to get to this first stop services, and I'm starting to get a headache. And I'm like, dude, this isn't right. Like, I don't feel great. Like, I'm getting headachy, and I'm like, this smells. I'm like, I think we got something coming into the cabin here. And it turned out that the exhaust had a split in it, right in the middle, right under the cabin. And the cabin had quite a few holes in it. So the exhaust gas was just coming up into the cab. So we rolled down some windows, which did solve the problem, though I created another one because I rolled my window down and then the glass just went whoop. And it's like,
it's not coming back up.
Okay, it's not coming back up. We stop off at services, managed to get it going in by whacking a spanner underneath it. And it was only, I think, halfway through the journey, he then told me, he's like, yeah, I did have breakdown insurance, but there is a limit to the radius they'll recover us. So had we broken down before this point, we were in trouble. I was like, I'm so glad you didn't tell me that. And you know what? It got home.
That's amazing.
It actually did it. It made it. It was unbelievable. I'm not sure it's really gone anywhere since, but it was very memorable. It was an insane journey. One of those silly things you do when you're young and daft. And now we're just old and daft.
With more pain.
Yeah, more pain and suffering, and more vehicles for both of us. But you know what? That was such a fond memory. And I was like, if the one time in life where I was like, we have done no favors to ourselves. We have done no prep. We've done no planning. You know, there is an almost certainty of failure here. And to be honest, the biggest problem we had was that as it got colder, I got really chilly because the heater didn't work and my window was wide open. But that was preferable to being gassed.
Gassed to death, yeah.
Yeah, death by, well, it's not death by Dennis because that's his other one. It's death by Dodge.
Oh, wow.
That's not a way to go, is it really?
That's funny. Well, I tell you what, when he comes down to the podcast, he needs to bring one of the fire trucks, I think.
You be careful what you wish for, my friend.
No.
Be careful what you
doing
wish
it, Laurie,
for.
if you're listening, when you come on, bring a fire truck. I'm serious. We'll find space for it here.
Oh, dear. And so, with that, I think we should leave our lovely listeners, lest they have a breakdown.
Yes.
And we want to say a big thanks to you for listening to us here at the Radiator Arms. You will find us every Monday morning at 7 o'clock, ready for your journey to work, however it may be, and hopefully a successful one without any stops, unnecessary ones at least. And we're always first on YouTube, followed a week later by all of your good audio sources, including Spotify, Amazon, Apple, and I don't know, probably Deezer, Napster, Kazaa, LimeWire. Yeah, we don't mind as long as you listen to us. Honestly, we're happy. We're just grateful, aren't we?
And people also need to remember that we have an email address, which is landlord@theradiatorarms.com. We'd love to hear about your breakdown stories via the email, or even if you just want to say hello to us. And also maybe pop down in the comments section some of your breakdown stories, or just say hello to us, or do what that one guy does and give us his breakfast order every week.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.